The Tesla Model Y. In areas like California, this car is absolutely everywhere, and Tesla just recently launched a brand new version of this car with a ton of upgrades. It's one of those cars that people love to criticize, but keeps doing well in reviews. So today I'm going to review the brand new version of this car. This is going to be a fully comprehensive review. So if you've never heard anything about Tesla or the Model Y, I'm going to show you all of its features and comment on the functionality of each feature throughout. Also note the particular improvements that this car now has over the previous version, so you can compare if maybe you're shopping used. There's a lot to get into here, including things that are very good and including some things that aren't so good. So let's get into it. For 2023, the Model Y was the world's best-selling car, but a lot has changed since then, and this car has seen massive improvements at the same time. So let's compare the two for just a second. First off, side by side, these cars are both very similar and quite different at the same time. When you look at the general shape, these are basically the same car. From the side, they are essentially the same, with the same 4 doors, the same shape of glass, the same door handles, and more. From the rear, though, you see big differences. The new Model Y has this rear sweeping light bar. Instead of it being a direct light bar like we see in many cars today, it actually reflects off of this piece with the Tesla logo, and you can really see how inset this is when you look at it from the side. It's very striking in person and a very cool design. A difference here too is that when you open this trunk on the new Model Y, the taillights travel with it as opposed to staying put with the previous version. And yes, for those concerned, there are lower lights that activate when the trunk is opened. Then you can see some new cut lines in the trunk itself. Previously, this hatch was all one large piece. It was a very fluid design, but it was very expensive to replace. I had this repaired multiple times for rear endings on the old Model Y with cars on Turo, and it was very expensive. But now they've changed it a lot. Notice how much that rear diffuser now sticks out. That's the first thing that will be bumped if you get rear-ended, and then the hatch is broken into 4 different pieces instead of 1. You can see the new lines very clearly, and it's not as fluid, but it will be cheaper to repair. I think the new rear has a much cooler look to it, and I like that the license plate has been dropped down to the bottom. There's no Tesla logo, just the Tesla letters written across. Then we come to the front. Instead of 2 rounded headlights, everything has been much more squared off, including the hood itself. The light bar across the front has 2 brakes in it, and then the actual headlights are below that. Instead of a bumper with an integrated lip, the lip itself is also a different color, black, and separate, which likely makes this more repairable. Those are the main differences from the outside that are very obvious between these two cars. For me, the old one looks more like a cute, modern VW Bug, versus the new one is a lot more fierce. Some will prefer that, versus some will prefer the older design. But now that we've seen the differences between the old and the new version from the outside, let's get into the review. The Model Y is a 5-seat, 4-door crossover SUV with a hatchback trunk. It's also fully electric. There's no backup gas engine or anything, it's purely running on electricity. It's available in 2 configurations in the United States today: long-range rear-wheel drive or long-range all-wheel drive. So this one is the base model as of today. But other than that extra motor, it's actually the exact same car. The interior is identical. So if you go all-wheel drive, this review today will absolutely apply. Tesla offers this in 6 different paint options, and this particular one is in Quicksilver, and then you can get the 20-inch wheels as an upgrade if you prefer. There's also the tow hitch option, the white interior, and the FSD option from Tesla. This is my new rear-wheel drive long-range Model Y in Quicksilver, with stock wheels, black interior, and FSD optioned. I've been driving it for a few weeks now, and after experience with many different Teslas, this one has probably been one of the best. I'll detail why. When you want to get inside the Model Y, the doors open with these flush handles. You put your thumb in the large part and then pull. It's a cool look, but actually harder than normal handles when carrying things. And it's one of those Tesla design things where it looks cool, but you're actually wondering, is the sacrifice in functionality actually worthwhile long term? But since this car is fully electric, there's more room in the car, so you have a large front trunk, since there's no engine to put there. It pops open from the app or on screen, but then it's manual from there, which I do feel is a little bit of a miss here. If this was a powered front trunk, I would use it a lot more. Inside, there are 3 main things that you'll notice. First, this is a decent-sized storage area. It can fit most carry-on suitcases, and I personally keep road accessories that I don't need all that often in there, again, since it's a manual open and close situation. Then there's a drain plug. This is new for this refresh, so you can treat this as an ice chest and then drain it afterwards. Then lastly, there's the washer fluid fill up right there under the hood. It's located conveniently low and it's obvious. In theory, this is one of the only things that you will actually have to maintain on this car. And people often joke that they're having to do their regular maintenance on their Tesla by filling up that washer fluid. In any case, the front trunk closes manually, but it's soft close, so be careful with that. While we're up front, you'll see that light bar that I mentioned. This is a DRL, or daytime running light. It's just for looks and not your true headlights. The headlights are below that, and these are actually matrix LED headlights. For years now, Tesla has shipped their cars with matrix LED lights, but hadn't activated them, but they are now active on this new Model Y with their adaptive headlights feature. This actively keeps your brights on and then dims certain LEDs based on other cars, so it's not blinding them. It's a very cool feature that more and more cars have these days, and cars have had for years in other countries, and it's almost crazy to see it in action when it's actively dimming for specific cars. But the last thing to notice up front is the front bumper camera. For now, this front camera is just for your own visual when you're parking and driving. It doesn't actually get used for self-driving features. But speaking of cameras, there are two cameras located below the windshield, pointing forward, and then there are two on each side, the front fender and the B-pillar on the right and left sides of the car. Then that takes us to the back. There's that very cool rear indirect light bar that I talked about earlier, and it glows in a way that you can't really capture on video. It's pretty striking in person. Then the taillights and turn signals are on either side of that. The rear camera is centered at the top of that light bar, and then there's the button to open the hatch. You can open the hatch this way, from the screen, from the app, or by standing near the car for a few seconds with your phone. It's hands-free opening with ultra-wideband from your phone. Then to close it, the button is on the inside, or again, you can close it from the app or the screen. But before we go inside, it's worth mentioning there's also the charge port located on the back left. This is the standard location for Tesla that other automakers are now adopting, since Tesla superchargers have been designed for it. You'll be engaging with this often. Then lastly, when it comes to wheels, these are the stock 19-inch cross-flow wheels. They get the best range and the best ride quality. As you're seeing them, these are the cross-flow wheels with aero covers, and those aero covers can actually be removed, although it's a little awkward to remove them. But here's what they look like without the covers. Overall, when you look at the exterior of this car, I think Tesla did a great job. It's a redesign that I think helps make it look a little less bubbly, and then it's something that actually sets it apart from the Model 3, instead of making it just look like a blown-up version of that car. To me, there's enough new detail here that clearly says that's the new Model Y when you see it, without sacrificing functionality. But now, let's go inside. Inside, the Model Y has a very simple minimalist design. Essentially, you have a steering wheel with a few buttons and a center 15-inch touchscreen. That touchscreen shows everything you need to see, including your speedometer, which takes a little getting used to, but overall it's pretty easy to get used to in time. Then it handles most vehicle controls. As far as physical buttons go, here is everything. On the steering wheel, you have buttons for brights, which function as a headlights button, bringing light options up on screen, a windshield wiper button, which swipes them once and then brings further controls up on screen. Holding that button will trigger the washer. Then on the right side, you have a button to bring up your cameras and a voice command button. Voice commands can actually do a lot. Almost anything you control in the car can be dialed in with a voice command, but the system does take a little learning and requires a good connection. For that reason, I personally rarely use them. Behind the wheel, you have one single stalk on the left side. This is exclusively a blinker stalk and truly only clicks down or up to signal left or right, respectively. This is a design change from every other Tesla currently shipping, because there they have changed to blinker buttons on the steering wheel. But with the new Model Y, they went for practicality and customer feedback in what was the world's most popular car. Then there are two scroll wheels on the steering wheel. The left one controls audio. Scroll for volume, click left and right for previous or next track, and then press in to pause or play. There are secondary controls on that scroll wheel as well, where if you press and hold, it brings you to a menu that you can customize for multiple vehicle controls, things like brightness, acceleration mode, temperature, and many more. Then the right scroll wheel controls Autopilot. You press it once to engage Autopilot or FSD, and press it again to disengage. Click the right or left to adjust following distance or FSD mode between chill, standard, and hurry, and then scroll up or down to adjust cruise top speed. Of course, on the doors, you have the buttons to open the door, window buttons, and then also a backup door release in the unlikely event that the car loses power. In the rear, these are located under a flap in the side door pocket. You have your standard accelerator pedal and brake, and then above you is a button for hazards next to the lights. But the button you'll notice I haven't talked about yet is a shifter stalk. That's because in the Model Y you shift entirely on screen. You press the brake and then take this little car and swipe it up to go into drive. Then you swipe it down for reverse. Press in the middle to go into park. A lot of the time that is how you are shifting, and when you really think about the motion that you were doing with a stalk compared to shifting on screen, it's actually fairly similar and doesn't take too long to get used to. But Tesla also includes an auto shift feature that works the majority of the time. Out of park, when you press the brake, it will indicate which drive mode it thinks you want and will tell you what it's going to select based on where it expects you to go. Then you can of course override this if you prefer. However, when doing maneuvers like 3-point turns, it will actually assist you with feedback on screen telling you to press the brake and turn the wheel, and then it will auto shift for you. Oftentimes this works great, but I find myself doing a combo of this and shifting on screen sometimes. Sometimes that's just because I want to do it myself, and sometimes it doesn't actually pop up with the auto shift. However, if the screen were to go dark, you do still need to shift, which is why near the hazards there are these invisible backup shifters. These light up exclusively when they are needed or when you tap on them. Then you press them to shift. It's truly a backup system, so don't think that that is how you shift in this car, because the way that you're really going to want to do it is doing it on screen or using auto shift. Lastly, there are buttons on the seats to adjust positioning and lumbar support, and these are saved to your driver profile. Aside from that, everything else is controlled on screen. So as I mentioned, wiper settings, mirror adjustments, opening the glove box, child locks, steering wheel adjustments, and all of your settings are done on screen. Even climate control is handled on screen. You can adjust the vents to the airflow you want with a visualization, and of course adjust temperature and fan speed. Overall, I find myself used to this setup and I don't mind it, but some people still prefer a physical button for certain things. Maybe a mirror adjustment with a menu on screen sounds terrible, but ultimately this process is started on screen and then dialed in with instructions and the scroll wheels. The reason it doesn't matter to me though is because of Tesla driver profiles. Tesla driver profiles are linked to your Tesla account and/or your key. They are automatically selected when you get into the car and absolutely everything is saved there. You get in, the seat adjusts, the mirrors adjust, your drive mode adjusts, autopilot preferences, steering wheel position, security settings, streaming account logins, climate control settings, including vent position, and everything are automatically there. It's all saved to your profile. When sharing this car, you can share app access, and they can create their own profile that saves. So truly, you might find yourself a little annoyed to adjust certain things on screen the first couple of times, but then you are dialed in and never actually have to touch these settings again. Climate controls are one of those things that people find crazy to have controlled on screen, but once you get in and the seat adjusts to the spot you want, with the airflow exactly where you want it every single time, you really don't mind. All around the front of the interior, you'll notice an LED light bar. This light bar is fully customizable to whatever color you want, and does add a pretty cool look to the interior overall. It extends into the rear seats as well, and new modes actually allow you to connect this with the color of the album cover you're listening to, or you can have it kind of interact with the music itself. Inside the center console, these drawers slide, unveiling 2 cup holders and a deep main pocket. Within that pocket is a 12-volt outlet to power devices, and then of course between the center console and the screen is the wireless phone charger. This is for 2 phones and does a decent job, but could be better compared to other wireless chargers out there. Under the armrest in the center console is more storage. This is also deep and then has a single USB-C port within it. This armrest magnetically opens and closes, so there's no latch there. And then there's the glove box. This opens from the screen, as I mentioned earlier, and it has some space and then a USB-A port in there for the included USB flash drive. This is what stores the footage for Tesla's included Sentry mode security system. Now this is something worth mentioning. This records all the cameras around the car when somebody gets close or does something to the car. This also functions as a dash cam when driving, and you can go back and view these clips in the car or from the Tesla app itself. This is a very awesome built-in feature that we're seeing from more brands these days, but it's definitely enabled by cars that are fully electric. Of course, above you as well as the driver are sun visors with integrated mirrors and a light, and there's more storage in the door pockets themselves. There's the rear view mirror, which is manual. It does have auto dimming, but there's no screen or anything there. And then there's the interior camera. This faces into the interior, and you can actually access this when no one is in the car to monitor your car, or when you're in dog mode, you can use it to monitor a pet. Those Sentry mode cameras all around the car that I mentioned earlier as well can be streamed to your phone via the Tesla app, which is a very cool feature that allows you to check on your car whenever you're away. If you're worried something might be happening either near your car or just in that general area, you can check on the cameras and stream them instantly. That interior camera also monitors your attention when you're using full self-driving. And then, of course, we have the seats that you'll be sitting in. These are very comfortable seats with a few different adjustments, and they're heated as well as ventilated. The ventilation is very nice to have in the Model Y and definitely a very good upgrade, especially in hot climates. But I've felt much better ventilated seats when it comes to that feature. They work to keep you cooler than them not being there, but you don't really feel them, so to speak. It's not like it's suddenly chilling your body when you have it on the full setting. It's just keeping you mildly cool. Then the heated seats you definitely do feel. It's worth noting as well there's a heated steering wheel in this car too. So while this is a fairly simple cabin overall, you start to notice all of these details, including speakers all over the cabin. There are 15 speakers in the Model Y, along with one subwoofer and 2 amplifiers. These are located all around the cabin and out front in kind of a soundbar situation, and the new grills in the door look better than they did in previous years. Overall, this is an incredible sound system. Tesla's sound systems are all fantastic and incredibly clear, and they did a great job in this new Model Y. I'm not just saying that, I'm very picky about sound systems as a musician myself, and the Model Y is one of my favorites. Then we get to the rear seats. There are 3 seats, of course, in the Model Y's second row, and there are 2 side seats and then a middle one that folds down for cup holders and an armrest. That middle seat also has a headrest that extends up if you prefer. And then these are perforated seats like the front, but they are not ventilated. They're only heated. They're very comfortable rear seats, and they can recline slightly. One thing you may notice when you look up here is that there are cutouts in the liner overhead for more headspace, and this actually is an improvement over previous years. Then, of course, you have door pockets, speakers, and seat back pockets. But one thing new to this year's Model Y is the rear screen. This allows rear passengers to control climate, and then you can push the front passenger seat forward when nobody is in there. You can also stream movies and TV from Netflix, Disney+, YouTube, and more, play games, and play music. On top of this, you can connect Bluetooth headphones for your own audio experience in the rear, and it's independent from what's going on up front and on the main screen. There are also 2 USB-C ports there as well for easily charging devices. Above you, there are coat hangers, small lights, and of course, the panoramic glass roof. This is a very cool feature of the Model Y that has stayed, and they've done a good job of actually making this a lot better when it comes to heat rejection. This is a single-piece glass roof that provides a really great view as rear passengers and great headroom overall, and they've done a great job at making it not as warm as I mentioned. The materials all around the Model Y, when you really look at it and feel around, are great. There's essentially no hard plastic anywhere, which is a huge upgrade. The only place I really see it is in the back of the front seats, the center console, the steering wheel where the buttons are, and then the trim with the lights embedded. Other than that, when you look at something like the door, even the parts that look hard are actually soft to the touch. But for many, when it comes to the interior and the rear seats, they'll actually be focused on folding those seats down to store things. The Model Y is actually one of the most versatile cars out there. While from the outside it may look small, the storage capacity is immense because it's very well engineered. The rear trunk space in itself is pretty solid, and then there's a cargo cover there as well that can cover up anything from view and prevent anything from jostling around too much. And then there are 2 side cubbies that are pretty deep as well. These are useful for keeping smaller items separate and in place. And then below that is the first of 2 understorage compartments or sub-trunks. The first one here is very deep. You can store a lot of stuff in there, and I use this all the time. I personally love to store maybe 3 large grocery bags there because they stay in place, and then I can even close the lid and store whatever I need to on top of it. And then there's a second understorage compartment beyond that. This one is fairly shallow and further back, so I use this more for things that I don't need access to as often, but it's more space than most people realize. So already this trunk is far more useful than the average trunk its size, but for more space, of course, you can fold down the rear seats. They fold flat and they do so electronically. Tesla actually says that these fold electronically quicker than any other car in the industry, and it does do it very quickly and seamlessly. There are buttons to do this in the rear or buttons on the sides of the seats, and then you can also fold these from either screen in the car. Those rear seats are in a 60-40 configuration, so you can fold either side or fold down just the middle seat if you prefer. Maybe you need the 2 seats, but then you need to put something long down the middle, you can easily do that here. When the seats are down, it opens up this expansive pass-through to store a lot of stuff, and it shows just how versatile this car can be. Then when you remove the cargo cover too, it folds and stores within the subtrunk. There's actually a dedicated spot for it, which is pretty clever, and better than what many cars do, and what this car did in the past, where you kind of have to find a place for that cover when you're not using it. And then when you're done, you can fold the seats back up electronically, replace the covers, and you're good to go. So a quick summary of all the storage in this car: you have 2 subtrunks, the trunk, 2 side cubbies, seats that can fold flat, a front trunk, then space that can be utilized underneath the front seats. There are some good accessory tubs that you can take advantage of for that. Now, of course, no review would be complete without mentioning some issues. And no car is perfect, but Tesla does have a little bit of a reputation here that luckily has been changing as of late, but it tends to be a combo of certain annoying features and then bad build quality. Overall, these things have improved a ton in recent years, and this car overall has a great build quality, but there are some things that I've noticed. The first thing is very small, but I've noticed that the front hood lines up perfectly with the brake and the light bar, but actually only at certain angles. So sometimes it looks off and like those are not in line, which is odd, but definitely not a big deal. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the handles can be a bit awkward to use, especially when you're carrying things. Things like that automatic rear trunk opening can be good, but it feels like something like a kick sensor just would have done a better job and done it a little more consistently. But then comes build quality. My car came with 2 very obvious things. For one, there was an obvious scratch on the trunk lid when I looked at this car. It was big and noticeable, such that I didn't actually take delivery at first. But it was the end of quarter, and this was my last opportunity to take delivery of this car. So they offered to fix it or to find another one. There were 2 other cars in Quicksilver nearby that I could have gotten, but they said both of those actually ended up having defects worse than my car. This was one of those situations that was just kind of confusing. Why are all these cars coming in with a little bit of damage? They said that these had been getting better over the years, but then they had run into them arriving at delivery centers with issues, especially recently. So I ended up opting to get the paint fixed. Overall, it looked great and good enough for me, and I'm not one who notices these tiny details, so I decided to take delivery, and then they gave me a free month of supercharging. For some, that's not a worthy trade-off, but for me, I decided to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get the deal I was getting, or I would have had to change colors on the car. Then after driving, I've noticed more of a big one, which is a warped windshield, at least to a little degree. It's very hard to photograph or truly get on video, but it's enough to be an issue. Every time I look to the right when driving, I get a little distracted by it. It's actually a little bit warped right there, and you can kind of see it in this video. I have service scheduled to get this replaced because this isn't something normal for a windshield. Something like that always seems to happen to me, but it's also something that Tesla needs to improve because it shouldn't happen really at all. And it's an unfortunate part of buying a Tesla is that possibility of a service appointment after delivery. I've had it with a lot of my cars that I've gotten from them. Yes, it will be fixed under warranty, but still. Then there are a few interesting panel situations with my car. Overall, I'm not a stickler for panel gaps, and I think the car overall is pretty good. But when we look at some of those new cuts in the rear, some of them seem a bit odd, like the pieces just weren't fully formed totally in the right way. I don't think they will cause a problem at all, and I don't think I will ever actually mind. But when I started looking around with a fine-tooth comb and filming this car, I started noticing some details that seemed like they could probably be a little bit better. But ultimately what matters with all of this is, well, what is the car like to drive? One of the first things you'll notice when you drive the Tesla Model Y is that it has one pedal driving, or at least very strong regen braking, which enables that most of the time. You can see right here on screen in the new Model Y specifically, you have 2 deceleration modes. You have Standard, which says adjusts how quickly the vehicle slows when the accelerator pedal is released. This setting does not impact range or brake pedal response. And then you have Reduced, which it says the same thing for as well. Now Reduced is a lot more like a normal gas car that people would be coming from, and Standard is a lot more of a new experience, but once you get used to it, it's really nice. So first I'll demonstrate how Standard works. You'll first notice we're in hold mode here, and my foot isn't on the brake or anything. The car will get into a hold mode and actually hold on the brakes for you, and you can let go. It's actually pretty nice when you're waiting at long stops. But you accelerate from here, go straight up to whatever speed you like, but as soon as you let go, if I let go entirely, it actually comes to a pretty quick stop. Much quicker than letting off the gas on a normal gas vehicle. But if you get used to this, what you do is you just kind of feather it down a little bit, and then you come to a nice gentle stop. And what you'll notice is you end up not really needing to use the brakes. So if I'm going around this corner right here pretty quickly, and then I need to come around, I just kind of let off and turn. And I can accelerate. Let's say I want to come up here and turn. All I did was let my foot off a little bit. Go back in. So it's very, very nice once you get used to it. At first it's jarring because you take your foot off expecting you need to press the brake, and all of a sudden you're jumping into a pretty extreme deceleration. But again, once you get used to it, it's very nice. However, if you do prefer to change it, maybe to get used to it at first, you can go to reduced, and this is what that looks like. I'm up here at 15 miles an hour, I'll let off entirely, and it's slowing to a stop, but just not quite as intensely. So I can still use this in a pretty good way, and it doesn't actually impact my range because of the way the new brake works in this car. But when I come around a turn, it's just not quite as extreme. Now, shifting in practice, as I mentioned, is pretty cool because it will guess what you need to do when you hit the brake. So right now, I'm in an area where it's clear that I'm going to be going forward. So I press the brake and it automatically shifted into drive for me. But it's not driving yet because it's in hold. Then it says press to drive and tells me to hit the pedal there. But once I'm pulling up to something that's like a pretty obvious 3-point turn, normally you would shift using a stock, or here you would shift on screen, but it actually usually figures it out. So right here I'm coming up to this. Oh, it didn't figure this one out, so I'm going to have to shift into reverse by swiping. And there it says activate to drive. So I press the brake, check mark, turn the wheel, check, and now I'm into drive. So a lot of 3-point turns, it will understand that, and it's pretty good. So here, I'll go up to this one right here. Oh, to activate reverse, do these steps. Now I'm in reverse. And then it understands, of course, that I'm going to want to quickly go into drive. Automatically does it, and it gives you really good feedback so that you know that it's shifting. It also beeps and tells you on screen. I think it's a great feature, but it doesn't work all the time, and there will be certain cases where maybe you're doing something that's not super obvious when you're shifting into reverse, and those are the times that you would have to go like this and swipe. And then you're deciding you're going to go forward, swipe forward. And then when you're all done, come to a stop and tap for park. Now, one great thing about electric cars and Teslas in general is none of them are really that slow, and part of that is because it has instant torque. So it doesn't have any delay from hitting the pedal and immediately speeding up. And this is the rear-wheel drive Model Y, which is the slowest model, but it still gets a 5.6 second 0 to 60, which is actually a big improvement from the previous generation, which was 6.5 seconds. And still, it's a pretty thrilling acceleration. Not only is it useful for getting onto the freeway and things like that, but it's also a lot of fun when you just want to gun it. Whew. I think for the majority of customers, that's first off more than enough, and plenty to be very practical and useful, and then enough to still have some fun when you just want to punch it and feel that acceleration. Now, the screen in this car is pretty great, and it's one of the best refresh rates that you'll get in a screen. It's some of the best software that is available in any car from any manufacturer, and you really get used to it. You can see all of the charging stops that Tesla has available for you. There are superchargers all over the place. I mean, when you zoom out across the country, it's pretty amazing all of the chargers that there are, and you can clearly see all these road trips that you can definitely take. But right now I'm going to route to 2 different destinations. I'm going to first go here, and then it's pretty cool because it obviously routes this already, and I'll go ahead and go into park, and then we'll see the option that I can start FSD supervised from here. This is an option that you can turn on where you just press and hold, and it will take over for you and drive you all the way there. That's, of course, when you have the FSD package included. But let's say that I want to add some more stops here. I can click these 3 dots and click either Add Stop, Edit Trip, or Set Arrival Energy. And, of course, it's asking for my attention to make sure that I am looking at the road. But I'm going to edit this trip and go over here and click Add. And let's say that after this I want to go to Copa Vida in Pasadena. Adding that, click Done, and that is my new route. So that's a great feature that they added in software updates, but now when you get this car, it's just part of the car. At this point, full self-driving has gotten incredibly good. Now, if you look back a couple years on reviews of this car, I was probably saying, don't get full self-driving, it's not worth it. But at this point in this car, I'm using it almost all the time, and it does a very good job. Now, when I was driving here today, it almost kind of cut off a car in traffic, so I took over, and there still are situations where you will want to take over. But the majority of the time, it does a really good job. Like those turns it was just doing there were pretty great. But you'll also notice a couple of things. Right now we're on normal streets, and it's very quiet in here. If I turn off the AC, you can hear how great it does muffling all of the bumps and stuff in the road. That's the updated suspension in the new Model Y, and it's really an improvement, and it's a really noticeable luxury experience in here. And then they've also added double pane glass to the windows and just done a better job building the car as a whole to make sure everything is quiet, and then it's a very smooth ride. It's not bumpy at all in this car. It's actually probably the smoothest ride between the Model 3 and the Model Y. I really, really like what this car does. So now I'm going to let full self-driving get us onto the freeway. It's doing a great job right here, staying in the lane that it's supposed to be. It's deciding to change lanes quickly. And I have it in hurry mode, but as I was talking about, this scroll wheel can adjust the modes here. Now it is going a little slower than the car behind me wants to do, which will happen occasionally. I guess just when you're driving in general, but will happen with full self-driving. But I think overall this worked out. We have a decent distance from the car in front of me. And then I'm going to keep it in hurry mode, and we'll see how quickly it's going to try to get me probably to the HOV lane. We have about 5 miles here, and the HOV lane is an option you can turn on, and I'm able to drive in it because this is an electric car, and I have the stickers for it. But it's doing a great job getting behind this truck, and we can see what it's rendering here if we go full screen. It definitely sees that as a truck, actually has it pulling a trailer, or might be rendering it as 2 vehicles. But so far it's doing a great job, and you really kind of just get used to this in time. At first it's very uncomfortable to let it do lane changes for you, but you just start noting what it's about to do and looking and seeing that it is actually clear. It takes care of it for you, and then if there's something you're uncomfortable with, you can take over. There are a few ways to take over. The easiest way is to press this scroll wheel and then just step on the gas so that you can continue driving, or you can press the brake pedal and it immediately exits the entire self-driving system. Now, if you buy a new Model Y, you will get this system for free for at least 1 month. If you use someone's referral link at this point in time, you'll get 3 free months. So this is a great feature you'll be able to take advantage of. But if you don't opt to stay with full self-driving, either by subscribing or purchasing it, then you will just have the basic Autopilot system, and that system just does lane keeping and adaptive cruise control. It actually does a really great job and can be plenty on a lot of drives, but at this point, this system with full self-driving has gotten exceptionally good, that I am finding it more and more worth it. It just depends on really how much you drive and how much you love to actually physically drive all the time. And that is kind of the interesting thing about these cars, is you don't really have to drive it all that much if you have full self-driving in an area that it does it reliably. But at the same time, they're really fun to drive. They handle well, great ride quality, and great acceleration. Ooh, that was a very quick slowdown on the freeway, and honestly, I think it did a good job. Every other car was slowing down quite quickly. Now you can kind of hear the interior noise right now. I'm going 55 on the freeway. But it's coming through this mic, and that's not always the best representation because, first off, we're isolating this to sound really good for my voice, and then this mic might just interpret things a lot differently than your ears would actually do in the vehicle. So I think test driving the car or going and driving one is going to be the best way to truly understand what that experience is like. But here we're coming up to another stop with full self-driving, and did a really good, smooth job of that slowdown. In general, the ride quality is incredibly comfortable, and the interior noise is such that when you're listening to music and stuff, you kind of entirely drown out the road, and I think it does a great job. Now, I'm in hurry mode right now, as I mentioned, and you can change with the scroll wheel. You can see it up here. Change over to standard, and it's already actually instantly deciding to get me out of the lane. I do have to get off in 1.4 miles, but I think it's already getting over because standard is not necessarily something that would ride in the fast lane. And then you can go to chill from there. I usually keep it on hurry mode actually, but sometimes it's a little too aggressive, and maybe in stop and go traffic, I might find myself going down to chill or standard because it's going to be doing that thing where it's kind of weaving a little more than I prefer. It's doing it safely, but it's just a little bit much sometimes. And as you probably notice, I'm basically just keeping my hands close to the wheel and ready to take over if I need. And that's because with the current full self-driving system, you don't actually have to prove your attentiveness by touching the wheel with a certain amount of force. It uses this camera up here to monitor that your eyes are actually looking at the road. It can work with sunglasses as well, but overall it does a pretty good job. Sometimes at night it may get a little confused and you're looking at the road and it's saying, hey, look at the road. But overall, I think it's gotten to a point where it's pretty good at monitoring attention. And that's, of course, really important for safety at this point. The normal autopilot system, however, checks your attention by you applying a little bit of turning force to the wheel. So you'll see there's like this little bit of give in the steering wheel, and that's as much as you can do before it actually completely locks out of the autopilot system. So we're in some pretty decent traffic at 4:19 p.m. in the Pasadena area on a Monday, so this is pretty standard weekly traffic. And in 0.8 miles we have to get off, so it's already signaling. There's a semi right here. And it's always interesting to see what it's going to do, and then at certain times decide if you want to do something more aggressive or less aggressive. But it seems like it's banking on us being able to get in front of this semi here shortly. Now it turned it off, and I think it's going to wait for the semi to pass, or we might actually succeed getting in front of them. These maneuvers actually can be pretty difficult because it knows it wants us to get in front of this semi, but obviously we have to make sure none of these other cars are coming in to do the same. And there we go. That was a pretty great opportunity lane change. It's going to see this car cutting in with no blinker. Did a great job slowing down. Now I'd guess it's just going to jump in front right here. Yep. It's pretty amazing to see what it does, and to see when it's in the middle of a lane change and slowing down for the car in front in the lane that it's going to need to slow down for anyway. It really sees everything, and I'm very impressed by this system at this point. So I definitely recommend trying it out if you're taking delivery of a Model Y or test driving a Model Y. Try it out, give it a real chance, and then you'll decide from there with your free month trial if you want to continue using it. If not, Autopilot will do a good job staying in your lane, but then as soon as you want to change lanes, change freeways, all sorts of things like that, or drive on city streets, you will have to take over. So now I'm going to take over from this system, drive myself, and talk a little bit about what it's like to actually drive this car. Now you have a single stock here that only controls your blinkers. There's no other buttons on there or anything. It's just a click up or a click down. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to push into this turn a little bit. You can see that it just absorbs everything really well, and I think they did a great job of balancing this to still feel sporty, but not too sporty such that it's sacrificing on ride quality. They really want this to be a comfortable car. If it's the best-selling car in the world, like it was in 2023, if it's going to get there again, it's probably going to need to be just a generally very practical, comfortable car for people. As always with this car, with every Tesla vehicle, the steering is very tight. So whatever you do, it's going to move. It's not like there's any give, really. The steering is a little lighter on this rear-wheel drive compared to other more sporty cars that they sell, but you hardly have any give whatsoever. As soon as you're turning this wheel a little left, your wheels are turning. There's not really much give. The basic conclusion here is that this is a base model, but it has plenty of speed. It's a very comfortable ride, and then when you want to drive it, it handles great. Takes all of these turns very well. The steering is very tight and controlled. I love it. Now, one last aspect to talk about with this car is charging. Of course, there's no gas for this car. So if you live in a home or have a situation where you can charge at home, that's going to be your best experience by far. I've always been able to charge my cars at home, and it immediately shifts from being any sort of inconvenience to being far more convenient than going out to fill up with gas. Because if you install a normal 220 volt outlet, you can charge up overnight and be good to go the next day. So that's what I do every single day. No matter how much I drive throughout that day, I get home with 40% or 0% battery, and then I plug in and it charges up to 80% on my off-peak hours, and I'm good to go the next morning. I didn't have to spend any time actually doing that. The time I spent with charging that car was the 5 seconds it took to plug it in. Now, yes, when you're charging at home, it does take maybe 8 to 10 hours or so, depending on the speed of your particular charger, but that is not time that you are actually experiencing. However, if you can't charge at home, or if you're charging out on the road all the time, you'll be using Tesla superchargers. Now, the great thing about these is that they're incredibly reliable, they're very quick, and they're very abundant. They're all over the place, as you can see with Tesla's supercharger map. especially in more common areas. You pretty much can go anywhere in these cars and you know that you'll have reliable charging there. So I've been using FSD as I've been talking, and one of the most impressive things I find with the system that it just did is it actually slowed down for a dip in the road. Previously, it wouldn't do that, and a lot of systems don't think to do that. But of course, if you're coming up to a dip, you don't want to bottom out your car. And this actually does an incredible job at recognizing that in advance and slowing down for it so that you don't bottom out. In any case, back to supercharging. Tesla supercharging is really great. I've used it for all sorts of road trips. I've driven from LA to Washington State and back. And the only times I've been maybe annoyed by the supercharging time is on a drive like that, when it's an incredibly long drive. If you've driven 16 hours in a day and then you're stopping again for 20 minutes or 30 minutes to charge up, that can be frustrating. But for most road trips, I find that if you just pair it with your restaurant stop or your bathroom break, it works out really well. So I just went to Las Vegas a week ago and I charged one time along the way. But I did it such that I got there, I plugged in my car, then I went in to get some food and use the restroom, and I came back out and maybe had a couple more minutes to charge until it got me to the charge level I needed to be to continue my trip. I find that for the vast majority of people, it's a really great experience. And then if you're adding time by supercharging, you're definitely subtracting it by charging at home if you can do so. For me, I save a ton of time by never having to go find gas or find cheaper gas by things like waiting in line at Costco. And then Tesla's overall system is incredibly well integrated to where all you have to do is plug in when you get to those chargers. You don't have to scan payment info or anything. You just plug in and you're good to go. Then it's integrated incredibly well on screen to automatically route you. So just for fun right now, I'll route us to Seattle, Washington. Let's see, it's going to calculate this route. It's probably going to have a decent amount of charging stops, but we'll see that it calculated it automatically for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stops. And it's telling me how long I need to charge at each stop and what percentage I'll arrive at. It's just really well integrated, does it all automatically for you. It will recalculate as needed in your trip if for some reason you're using more range. And then, of course, with full self-driving, you can just press Start FSD and start your road trip. So that is a comprehensive breakdown of the new Model Y and the base model, which is very cool to see. The base Model Y has a lot of great features and a lot of great things to offer, but I hope this review was helpful in detailing all of the features and all of the quirks that this car still has. There are definitely still some quirks, and it seems like it's always going to be that way with Tesla. Overall, when comparing this to the previous version of the Model Y, it's pretty night and day. They've done an incredible job at upgrading all the elements of this car to really make it stand out. But most importantly, this is a very comfortable, very versatile car that also has some pretty amazing self-driving capabilities. If you're in the market for one, it's a really great car to get, but we will see what Tesla is doing around the corner. They just announced this Model YL that has a longer wheelbase out of China. Maybe that will be coming to the United States sometime in the future. They also will probably make cheaper versions of this Model Y, so there's a lot to be seen here. However, if you're interested in this car today, the tax credit that it qualifies will be expiring October 1st, so it may be something to look into. In the meantime, if you want to see my top tips for setting up your Tesla vehicle the right way, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.